It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher.
My personality is I want to win badly. I want to win more Lombardis for Philadelphia and our fans. We got the greatest fans around, and I will do everything possible.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which drops tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. You can get the latest edition from Monday. It is out right now. Geoff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, of course, bringing you that. This hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. I will say this, I was just reading this, Mosher. LeBron James was saying that he told everybody that they shouldn't have played, that so many injuries that are going on right now. And, in the football world, they're the only one that got to play their season, right? They got to play normal time frame. They didn't have to, try. And you're seeing injuries all over the place. Baseball's having so many injuries. Basketball is having so many injuries. On the football side of things, man, they really, really lucked out by the fact that they didn't have to move anything. They didn't have to delay anything or start anything weird. That's the one sport that is seemingly still on the same track and path where the other ones are all trying to kind of play catch-up, and they're hurting for it.
Yeah, I remember last year when we were speaking at this time, and we would always have to talk in generalities about, I don't know what's going to happen. And we kept saying that. But the one thing that myself and Adam, just knew from talking to people in the league is that the NFL was hell-bent on having a season and having it be as normal as possible despite whatever obstacles that COVID presented. And it presented a lot. If you go back to I guess it was October or early November, the Broncos had a practice squad wide receiver start at quarterback, right? Because all three of their quarterbacks were on the COVID list. So it didn't matter to the NFL, though. I mean, listen, they don't want that going forward. And clearly you see these restrictions that are loosened, but yet ones that remain the same now are intended to get players all on the same page with vaccinations. But the NFL was always determined to, quote unquote, secure that bag. Play on those primetime games, get that money, get that advertising rev.
There's no question about it. And for the most part, they did. I mean, there was a handful of games. You had a Thursday night game or, a Wednesday night game. And other than that, but, man, you're seeing what's going on. And I will say, LeBron is saying, hey, I don't know what he wanted them to do. I guess they could have moved it back to, January or February. But at what point do they get the thing back on track? That's where football is. They've got to be counting their blessings that they didn't have to push and squeeze and try to condense, that they are still on the same track. And I guess I saw today they're going to start to let the reporters back for in-person interviews.
They are. They're gonna let vaccinated reporters in for interviews. Yes. So I'm vaccinated. I'm a reporter. I look forward to being able to kind of do some things with the team that doesn't involve Zoom. So not that, hey, look, the Zoom was the best alternative or whatever you want to call it, the teams. Whatever they set up was the best alternative that we could have dealt with. But it is time now, and I'm happy to see the NFL is doing that. And I hope that all sports start to go back toward that direction where we have – now, if people, leagues, media reps want to have discussions about some of the issues that have come up lately, with I can't remember the woman's name who the tennis player who pulled out of the tournament. Mm-hmm. Osaka, is that her name?
Yep.
Yeah. If they want to have discussions about, the media climate and what's too much and what's not enough and what's mandatory and what's not, I'm sure, people who are in higher places than I in the media would be happy to have those discussions. But I do think it's time to, for those who are vaccinated to be able to get back to that.
Yep, and you're seeing it around sports. That's a good step in football. Again, they played their season last year, and now they have the next season coming up. Now, let's get into a couple of things here. On the latest edition of Q&A with Jason Avant and Quentin Michael, I thought those guys had a really interesting discussion about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, where a lot of people are ready to give up on him and almost think that, he's not going to make the team. What did those guys have to say about the former second-round pick that makes you think that, hey, maybe this guy could be salvaged?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would use the expression damning someone with faint praise a little bit to describe Jason Avant, who was an assistant wide receivers coach last year under Aaron Moorhead and worked with these wide receivers. And he basically said he felt that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside could probably, theoretically, perform to a higher level if moved into the slot, because he just doesn't have the fluidity and that natural hip movement to route up cornerbacks on the outside. But if you put him on the inside, he has enough of, and this is where you see tight ends and slot receivers distinguish themselves, enough of those subtle moves that even Jason was himself great at as a slot receiver for the Eagles, whether it's head fakes or jab moves. And he noted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's basketball background, where you have a lot of similar head fakes and stutter steps and things like that, where you can use to get a step on a defender, whereas it's not just your athleticism and your deep speed, it's your understanding of the nuances of the game. So he felt that Arcega-Whiteside could probably be a more productive receiver if given that opportunity and put there. And I do remember last year in camp, they did look at J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as a slot receiver. But, the reality is that doesn't mean that Jason or the Eagles or anybody else thinks that he's going to win a roster spot or even put him in the slot. It's still going to be better than what you might get from Greg Ward or Jalen Reagor from the slot. Because remember, these guys are going to move around a lot. And because JJ is not someone I see all of a sudden becoming a great special teams player, and you never know, and you're competing for a backup spot or a fourth or a fifth guy maybe. I mean, he'll be in the mix, but I don't know that all of a sudden the move to the slot puts him back up the totem pole at all.
Yeah, I find that kind of an interesting conversation, because I had brought up before is, the Eagles had a guy in Nelson Aguilar who his rookie year was useless essentially, and then they moved him in the slot in 2017, and he really became an impactful player for them. I mean, I thought he was a big part of their offense in 2017, and then the next year they had to keep moving him. Like, he would be the slot, and then someone would get hurt, and they had to put him on the outside, and it just seemed like he was like the Vince Velasquez of the wide receiving core there. They were yo-yoing him all over the place. It's like, hey, if you can, maybe JJ is similar where, hey, we tried you on the outside, didn't work. Let's focus with you on the slot, and maybe we can salvage you a little bit.
Yeah, I think the concept of what you're speaking of as far as moving somebody and giving them a fresh start like Nelson Aguilar did, and then maybe in a position where the ball's a little closer to you as opposed to all the way down the field, is probably a little comparable. I would say, though, that Nelson does have the hip fluidity and the natural movement of an outside wide receiver that J.J. Arcega does not have. That's what made Nelson a very good vertical slot option for the Eagles. One guy I thought might be a good comp, and I even asked Jason about it during the show, was maybe Jordan Matthews for J.J. Arcega, as far as a guy who's bigger, stronger body type and can kind of muscle guys and catch crossing routes underneath zones and sit down there. And Jason was like, I could kind of see that too, but he even felt that Arcega-Whiteside is probably something a little bit better athletically than Jordan Matthews, but still not somebody like Nelson Aguilar with the smooth, fluid hips.
Right.
So somewhere in between. And I know Quentin Michael brought up Marquez Colston, which is kind of funny because Colston was like an amazing wide receiver. I mean, he had, I don't know how many yards he finished his career with, but he was probably 8,000 or 9,000 yard seasons. Although I don't think he ever made an All-Pro, or he may not have made too many Pro Bowls, but that's what Quentin Michael kind of drew from what Jason was saying. And maybe there's something to that.
When he was drafted, Moshe, he was kind of going to be the replacement for Alshon Jeffrey, that he would do a lot of the things that Alshon did. Not fast, point of attack, catch radius. Is that thought process maybe out the door now for this new coaching staff?
Yeah, because Alshon had just or maybe still a little bit, had a really unique ability to be able to separate downfield Mike, not just using his body. I mean, he was good at high pointing. He was good at back shoulders, but he had just a strange, deceptive twitch about him that would really start to kick in 10 to 15 yards down the field, more so in Chicago than with Philadelphia, I would say. I think the injury started to take a toll on that ability, but so far we've only seen very small opportunities or limited times when we've seen J.J. Arcega-Whiteside be able to make a catch down the field where he did have some separation. But Alshon was a legit separator in his own unique way, and that's not something J.J. Arcega has mastered.
No, he hasn't mastered anything, and I guess the question will be in training camp when we get to that point is he in competition for playing time or just a roster spot? I guess that's really next is do we just keep him on the roster or is he in legit competition to get snaps?
Yeah, I mean, he is certainly in the competition because of the lack of great options. I mean, right now you look at the team and you say two guys who are undoubtedly, no doubt about it, locks to make the team are Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor. I would throw Travis Fulgham almost in there because he's going to get a shot to see if they can't bring back what happened last year.
Does JJ battle with the slot guy or is it's either you or Fulgham getting these snaps?
Well, I mean, because you're talking about both being kind of natural X's, but, Devontae Smith can play some X. We'll see if they think Jalen Reagor can play some X. They're going to move guys around. But I think in general, and you see this a lot, they're going to move around a ton. So Arcega-Whiteside is competing to make the team as a wide receiver. If he's good enough, they'll find multiple spots to play him in or wherever it's suited. But as far as competition goes, there's really three guys that I can tell you are going to be on the team. Those two and Travis Fulgham, unless Fulgham has the worst camp ever. And then after that, it's wide open. You've got Quez Watkins, you've got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, you have John Hightower, you have Greg Ward, of course, and then you've got the Osborne kid who was a rookie free agent.
Yep, I know one of the things I'm looking forward to when we get to training camp, which is what, July 26th? Is that like the universal, something like that?
I thought it was the 27th, but it could be the 26th.
Well, somewhere in that range. That's like the universal training camp date, except for the teams that play in the Thursday night opener and the Hall of Fame game. So
correct.
July 27th. So we are closing in on 1 month away from training camp. I think the wide receiver thing is going to be one of the more fascinating ones. We touched a little bit on linebacker on Monday when you were on with us, that linebacker spot, how many different pieces you got there. Because much like wide receiver, you have so many different guys who do different things. You don't have a bunch of guys who are like similar. It's like, well, you do this and you do that and you can rush there and you're like these two spots have a plethora of guys who are very unproven, but they all do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, this coaching staff has been very bullish and very outspoken, Mike, about not having a certain scheme that you need specific player X for. They've both Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon have come out and said, we want good players, we want multifaceted players, and it's our job to find what they do best and put them in a position to succeed. Now, does that mean they don't have a scheme? No, of course they have a scheme. Of course they have a concept of what they want to do. When you take over in your first year, you may find that you don't have the personnel to do what you want to do. So you have to tinker with your concept and tinker with your scheme until you get the personnel to do what you want to do. But I do think it's better in general, and I do feel like these guys are being honest when they are open-minded about just having really good, well-rounded players and then seeing where they can put them. Because the league is going that way. It's sort of like the NBA positionless player. Once you get past the front four, right, and you get into your linebacker, safety, nickel, cornerback level, you're starting to see guys move all around. You're starting to see safety linebackers, slot corners, right, corner safeties and things like that. I mean, the Isaiah Simmonses of the world, the Tyrann Matthews of the world, they're lining up all over the place.
Yeah. And like you talk about the different in the secondary and how you get past the defensive line. You got ends and tackles still kind of there, the linebackers. But then this team on the secondary, you wonder how many guys, if you're sticking Jonathan Gannon and his staff in a room, if they're going through the defensive corners and are they saying, how many of these guys do we think are NFL caliber guys that we really like to play? Not that we might not like to have on our practice squad or give them a shot or have them in, the third or fourth. Like, how many of them can actually play if asked? Like, Kevon Seymour, he's a guy that, wasn't he the guy they picked up he was working like a moving furniture or something?
Yeah, he was. It's funny. He just had a nice interview on with Adam on Sirius XM a while back, and Adam said he was blown away. He was working at a tire store in California, and he had both of his shoulders repaired and got his shot with the Eagles because, the Eagles given everybody a shot at cornerback over the last 2 years. I mean, if you played the position, the Eagles probably looked at you. They may not have brought you in, but they probably looked at you and know who you are if you're a cornerback. And, you got to love a guy who is at a tire store right now playing for the Eagles. It reminds you of Lou Brown in Major League, where he's like, manage the Indians? Get back to you. You got somebody on the line about white walls.
Yeah. I mean, like you wonder, like how many guys legitimately that are currently in that depth chart make the team. Like, do they say make the team? Like, I feel like we're all still like, wait, we got, July 27th. We're about 6 weeks away before they get out there. How many is there going to be a new corner or two that enter this mix, or is this what you're going with?
It could be what they have to go with. It just all depends.
What if Gilmore is like? Could you like he didn't show up for camp? There's some people that think he could get traded. I mean, is that somebody that makes any sense at all?
If they weren't going to pull a trigger to get Julio Jones because some of it was also financial, how are you going to fit that money under the cap? Are you going to extend it for future years? I think you have to have the same kind of trepidation about Stephon Gilmore, who's coming off an injury, by the way. You drafted Zach McPherson, so you would like to get to be able to play him, if not this year, soon. So how many years are you going to commit money to Stephon Gilmore if you trade for him?
You play McPherson in the slot.
What's that?
You play McPherson in the slot.
You could, yeah, you possibly could. But they seem to have an abundance of slot receivers right now, with Josiah Scott, with Avonte Maddox, maybe some of these third and fourth. Craig James might be someone they look at the slot. They may look at some of these safeties and see them as slot corners. So I just don't see. I don't see it happen. I never slammed the door on the Eagles because you never can. But I don't see that happen.
I only bring that up because it just seems that like. He doesn't show up, and then that typically in New England kind of leads down the road of, whereas Seattle came out and they kind of absolved Adams from not showing up. Like, hey, you do not have to be here. That's not the route that New England's taking. It's like, all right, you don't want to show up? You're out.
Well, you do wonder if things change. I mean, New England doesn't have Nick Caserio there anymore. I know that this is a Bill Belichick operation, but Bill Belichick doesn't have Tom Brady there anymore, and he's coming off a pretty bad year. Not that I think he's going to totally change, but I don't know that he's going to be kicking Steph Gilmore out the door right this way. And if he does, I think he's going to want something pretty good in return.
All right, Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. Don't forget the new Football at 4 podcast with Adam Kaplan drops tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. with all the latest Eagles offseason stuff. We're going to be getting into training camp soon. We're going to be getting into division previews here on Football at 4. We'll take a look at all of the teams around and see all the big storylines because – man, there are so many things going on right now. I mean, we don't know what's going on. How many teams did we talk about with Andrew yesterday? I think we have 8 quarterback battles, right? Something like that.
Wow, is it that many?
Well, I mean, you got – I don't know. Do you believe in Washington's got a quarterback battle?
No, I don't believe that's a quarterback battle. I believe that's Ryan Fitzpatrick's job.
All right, so you got – I mean, okay, so they're saying that. Washington. Okay. How about Chicago? Do you believe them?
I believe them, but I think it should be a quarterback battle. I would certainly want Justin Fields to go win that job.
Facts. All right. New Orleans?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that is.
Denver?
No, that's Bridgewater's. You don't trade to sit him on the bench. That's going to be Bridgewater's job.
Did draft a guy in the first round, right? Locke and Bridgewater. So, but you would imagine that it's not 100%. I guess Houston doesn't know what they're going to do.
That's one of those faux battles that they say is a battle, but just like the whole, I think Fitzpatrick and Heineke thing. But I think that when you trade for Teddy Bridgewater and pay the money, although I know Carolina had to absorb a lot of it, but you do it with the intent of starting Teddy Bridgewater.
You got Houston. They have no idea, I would imagine, what's going on with Deshaun Watson right now, or maybe they do and aren't saying anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's a battle. But if it's not him. Is it the kid they drafted from Stanford? Now, who'd they sign?
They got Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, Okay.
And I don't know. Do you think? I don't think New England. I don't think that Mac Jones starts game 1.
I don't either.
So, at least there's places that have 2 quarterbacks that will always have an eye on them. How's that?
Sure, that sounds good. Some of them we won't call battles. We'll call them scrums or jockeys.
And of course, Nick Sirianni said there's a quarterback competition here. Now you got 3 guys.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's right. There's one in Philly, of course. Yes.
All right.
Nick Mullins going for Joe Flacco's job.
Check out Inside the Birds tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Adam's here tomorrow, And we will start looking at the divisions next week on Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash, leading you right up to July 27th training camp. We think it's the 20. It's either the 26th, 27th, 28th, somewhere in that range is when Eagles camp will begin. So we'll lead you right up to that with the guys during Football at 4. All right, Moshe, take care, man.
All right, my friend. Have a good one.
Geoff Mosher, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.